the home of hard truths and bold insights. Your captain for the day, or captain as always, on the Sport Garage, Dennis Masinde Kichui, aka Dimas, and we are in esteemed company. We are in fantastic company. We are in heaven, literally. We are in the same space with rugby royalty, ladies and gentlemen. So, Makofi Hewani for the one and only Charles Cardovillis in the Radio Generation studio. I have to hype you up, Charles. Welcome, man.
Thanks a lot, Dennis. It's great to be here. Great studios, I must say. For those who are listening, nice place. I like the setup. And thanks for having me on the show. It's a real pleasure.
It's absolutely a real pleasure for Radio Generation and for the Sport Garage, because a matter of fact, you are our first A-lister on this show, on that hot seat. So fantastic to have you, Charles Cardovillis. And if you're listening to us from wherever you are on 88.8 FM in Nairobi and 90.7 FM in Mombasa, for sure, that name Cardovillis is not new to you. I'll let the man himself give an intro of sorts. Akipotea, I'll take him back online. But Charles, tell us some history about yourself. Umetoka wapi? Where did you start this idea of rugby?
Yeah, thanks again, Dennis. My rugby journey started way back when I joined St. Mary's School. I joined St. Mary's for high school in Form 1. And at that moment in time, it was a cult in that school. You know, rugby was everything. And I got roped into the game. You know, interestingly enough, when I came in, I was heavy on cycling and swimming and that kind of stuff, following in the footsteps of the late Sean Cardovillis. And so I got involved in that. Then I had quite a nasty accident practicing for a triathlon around that time. And when that happened, cracked my collarbone and stuff like that. And so I was busy watching the rugby boys into the sessions and everything. And during my injury time, funny story is that a good friend of mine, again, the late George Poza Gashui, walked up to me. He didn't know me, and at that time, and he was like, "You're a big boy. What are you doing cycling and swimming? You know, you should be on the rugby pitch." And I never looked back from then. You know, I always credit my rugby days to him and how I started playing. And I never really looked back. And good 6 years in St. Mary's, because I did up to Form 4 and IB. Happened to captain the side at the same time. It was pretty much a golden generation. I played with some really, really great players. I had some great leaders ahead of me. I played with some good guys on my team and below me. So yeah, that's where the journey started. So I owe St. Mary's everything that I've done in rugby.
I know, fantastic. By the way, St. Mary's School, Lavington, by the way, one of the pioneer rugby schools in our country. And I'll talk as one of the people who were your rivals, by the way. In high school, I went to a school just at the edge of Ngong Forest called Lenana School. So we were absolute rivals with St. Mary's. But St. Mary's has a long history of creating rugby talents. They've honors they've won generally as a school, and the number of people who've come out of St. Mary's and representing Kenya in rugby and in different codes of sport is fantastic. One of the people I know very well, of course, a person I revered or watched very well in high school, and he's a famous guy, is called John Allan Lamu. Used to be a beast of a centre back, a centre back in the day. Some notable names who played with you, maybe you could name for the public to remember.
Yeah, I mean, I played with Paul Odera, who's currently director of rugby at KRU. I mean, he ended up captaining Kenya, coaching Kenya. Very, 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 very colourful career. The likes of Branko Ginja, who are ahead of me, Sasha Ginja, who also played for Kenya, the Sasha Ginja brothers. There was Oscar Radoli, Peter Ochola, Mark Hawley. And funny you mentioned that John Allan Namu. John Allan was my junior, and he was one of the, out of three boys, there was three boys in Form 2 who actually made the first team when I was captaining the side, and he was one of the boys that we got onto the team, and worked him really hard, and he really did us proud, and I'm really proud of the man that he became and the rugby player that he became. And I mean, the list is endless. There were so many superstars around that time, and guys who went on to feature for the national team. The really younger boys that people might, the listeners might be maybe familiar with, was Biko Adema. Biko as a young boy in primary that time would be at every training session just watching.
Yeah.
And no surprise, that's the talent he became later on.
Fantastic. Yeah, Biko also a fantastic friend of mine, by the way. I remember also his playing days as a fly half at St. Mary's, and it was also fantastic to see him grow and blossom into a fly half for Kenya. And he actually owned that position for many years. I also met him later on at Daystar University. I'm not sure if he played for Daystar Falcons, but fantastic rugby player. Tell us about the culture at St. Mary's. Why do they have a knack for producing this sort of talents? Is there something in what they do?
Yeah, I mean, at that time, more that time, I can speak more of that time and the years before and after. The culture around St. Mary's was, yes, there was the education bit, but the focus on extracurricular was also very heavy. So our musicals were big, basketball was strong, the swimming teams were strong. I mean, if you remember the likes of the Lialaha brothers at that time, Kamal Shah, so those were our swimmers. On the stage with the musicals, we had the Gilbert Awards of these days, who's acting somewhere in Hollywood and doing things there. So extracurricular was really, really, really big in St. Mary's, and it was supported, by the administration of the school. The Holy Ghost Fathers were running the school at that time, and we had Father Caffrey, who was the administrator there, and he was big on rugby. So supported us, and he gave us all the support we needed off the pitch, on the pitch. And even when the old boys left and always came back and pushed the team on. So it became a way of life in school, and you walked around like a demigod. You got certain privileges. You could leave class early, things like that. We got holidays for winning trophies.
Oh my word!
So even those who were not playing were really supporting us, so they could get some holidays.
Wow.
So so it was great, and it was built in and became the what the school was known for. And pity, times change and things change and other schools pick up, but that's it. We can just remember the good memories, and that's what it was. It was just a way of life.
100%. And also one of the big before we move on for St. Mary's, my experience of St. Mary's School and their rugby culture and their sports culture always culminated in one day each year, a tournament at St. Mary's School, and that was a fantastic experience. You can take us back to what you used to do, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're talking about the Black Rock. Yes, the Black Rock Festival. That was excellent.
Festival. That's fantastic.
One day of 10s rugby. It was 15s rugby, 10 minutes each side. It was a fantastic. We had schools from all over the country coming down, and I mean, of course, at that time, it made it even better that we had the privilege of winning it. I think I won it 4 times while I was there, twice as captain. So that was good. A good day out. School was the support. Parents, the whole school would turn up on that Saturday. Fantastic event and a fantastic showcase for rugby, for school rugby at that time. And
I bring it up because I think one of the I have a lot of time for sport in my life, so obviously anything that blows in that direction I support fully, and I really was encouraged as a young person, even back in the day, to see the organization and the level of support and the level of insight put into something like BlackRock and other tournaments like Prescott Cup and and other larger tournaments which are there really to nurture talent and to give the next generation something to do. And I don't know how successful BlackRock still is today.
Yeah, I mean, it's still running, and that.
Have you been involved lately?
Yeah, I mean, I was involved 2-3 years ago. I was trying to help the team come up and try and get the boys interested in rugby again. But they do have it every year. Kudos to the administration; they've kept it going. Whether the team is as strong as or not, it's still very successful. They had a really good one this year. Funny enough, was won by All Saints from Embu, which is owned by an old St. Mary's boy, Tom Kiragu. So
big up to Tom, man. Yeah.
So I mean, they've still carried on with the tournament, which is fantastic. It's important that it carries on. The schools still turn up. Fantastic, as you said. Showcase for them to come up and enjoy themselves and play with different schools from around the country. So yes, it's still going on, still running strong, and maybe next year we can have Radio Generation there supporting the tournament.
Fantastic. We'll definitely be talking about that, by the way. Grassroots growth in every sector, by the sports, in education, will and is fully supported by our agenda as Radio Generation. We want to see the next generation coming up. So this is fantastic. Quickly, we'll move on from St. Mary's now. You've won everything you could win there. Now we've moved on to university now, and I'd like to hear about your journey in University, Strathmore, and the rest, and now your journey and transitioning into playing for the Kenya national teams. So what was it like? And just explain your experience, how it was like.
Well, the national team came even before university, which was exciting for me. My first call up, I was still at St. Mary's, and I remember that vividly. Felix Ocheng Toti, who's a legend of the game, legend of the game. I see him walking one day into St. Mary's, and I asked him, "Hey, what are you doing here?" And he's like, "Hey, yeah, we've got the Amsterdam Sevens coming up, and they're looking to pick a young side, and you're one of the guys who've made the team, and you've been called upon."
Wow!
And that was a really top moment for me at that time.
I'll stop you. So I'd like to really picture this experience. So what were you up to that day when you get your first call up? Like, how was it like?
Well, I can remember. I mean, we were sitting outside. It was actually like during our lunch break, and we were sitting outside of the car park at outside the St. Austin's Church, if you know that well. And I see him coming up the car park, and he obviously was one of the guys that I know because I had started playing at Queen's when from my Form 3. So I had known him as one of my seniors, and he was a good friend of mine. And he walks through, and of course I know him, and there's this Kenya legend walking through, Kenya superstar at the time.
Wow.
And I'm like, "Hey, what's up? I know this guy, you guys don't," and that kind of stuff. And he's like, "Hey, Cardo, you've been called up, and they would like you to come for training and see that." And then it just caught me aback, and it was a fantastic moment. And again, St. Mary's was involved in that call up again, and it was a fantastic experience. Unfortunately, I could not make that trip. That was smack bang during my exam period. I was just about to finish.
Oh man!
Yeah, so I just made the decision that I cannot do that one, and I said the chance will come for me later, if it presents itself, and I continue doing what I did, and it did. It finally came, and I got involved in the national team training setups for the Sevens. That time the coach was Mike Tank Otieno. Yeah, and coincidentally the World 7 Series started the following year in 99. So very interestingly, now there was university call-ups, and that time supposed to go to university abroad and stuff like that, and had a very hard conversation with my dad, and it was like, can I take a sabbatical? Let me take 1 year off. Wow. And let me try and play rugby. And I mean, it really disturbed him. And
can you imagine?
Yeah, and I tell this story all the time because for me it was a really important bit of my life, And so he goes back and he meets his good friend who was owner of Capital, because my dad was at Capital FM that time, Linda Holt. And he says, "Linda, Charlie's saying he doesn't want to go to school, wants to take 1 year off and play for the national team." And my dad's nickname was Mickey, and she says, I remember her word like straight up because he gave it back to me verbatim. And he was like, Mickey, everybody can go to university, but not everyone can represent their national team.
Wow.
And that was it.
Oh,
and so my first stint with the national team was out in South Africa for the Sevens, the South Africa Sevens there. And I never looked back from then, and I always said I wanted to represent. It was a very proud moment for me, my family, my friends, and I never looked back. And that's what kicked it off.
I don't know which venue you used to host the South Africa Sevens. Was that Cape Town?
No, we're in Cape Town. Yes,
fantastic.
The first one was in Cape Town. Yes, and it was the first one, and wow. Funny enough, the first game for Kenya in Cape Town was against South Africa. Wow. It was a baptism of fire.
Boca, yeah.
But at the same time, it was an experience and a half, in this huge stadium. I had played in nothing like that before. And the winger on the South African side was the one and only Chester Williams. So I mean, what a way to kick off your career.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's you live back on those memories and experiences, and you cherish them for life.
So maybe you can tell people about how many years playing for Kenya Sevens, and obviously you've also represented the 15-a-side setup, so you can tell us about that. And obviously I'll take us back to an era which I would love to come back as a sports fan and a rugby fan, the Bamburi Super Series era. And so just explain a bit of that, your time around the national team and who you played under. You've spoken about Tank Otieno and the other coaches you played with, and maybe any memorable moment in that time when you're playing sevens?
Yeah, I mean, the sevens is always a great spectacle, and there's many. I mean, you can't really pick out one or two particular moments, but yes, I did play under Mike Tankotieno. And then after that, I played under Bill Githinji, who was great for my career too.
Yeah.
On the 15 side, I played under Ken Thimba, Tanko Tieno again, and at one point even Benjamin Ohimba was player coach.
Yes.
Yeah, for the 15 side. Yeah, so really memorable moments, on both teams. Of course, one of my biggest highlights was at the Commonwealth Games in Manchester, in 2002. Played in that and beating Samoa. No one expected that of Kenya. No one expected us of that. And if you'll all remember the iconic picture of we scored in the last minute, and it's Oscar Osir scoring and banging his hand on the, you can't forget it. And I had some of my family in the stadium there to watch that. So that was an amazing moment. So from the sevens, that was one of the big highlights of my career playing in sevens, and an amazing stadium. It's where Man City are playing now.
Yeah.
Of course, it was redone and everything, but they'd opened that stadium for the Commonwealth Games.
Used to be referred to as the City of Manchester Stadium.
Correct. And they knew. I mean, they had the plans. They knew what they were going to do.
Yeah.
So after that, when it was done up, they brought the stadium closer, got rid of the track around it, because now it was going to become a fully fledged football stadium. And then City took over it years later.
Something I see on social media generally, or in and around rugby setups, is first cap. There's the squad announcement or the team announcement that will start. How was that experience for you? How did it really work out in terms of your first cap? Did you really know you would play the first time?
Well, like even when when first you get named to the side and you're going to Cape Town, it's yes, and I was pretty much the youngest on that squad. It had the likes of Shaka Kwach, Toti, who I've mentioned, Pablo Murunga, Sydney Obonyo. I mean, it was a team full of superstars, and I was just saying, what, I'm just going to enjoy the experience, whether I play or not. It'll be a bonus. And at that time, in sevens, you couldn't just pretty much make substitutes as you want. It was only 3 players that come off the bench, so you're looking at your chances, and they're looking pretty slim at the moment. But funny enough, worked hard in training, worked hard when I was in camp there. And I got named for the first game. So, I mean, as I said, it was a baptism of fire. But it was what it was. And as I said, I just never looked back since then.
Fantastic. These are golden moments for me, but I actually remember all through the time that he's talking about. But I remember the 2002 games, and I remember this young version of Charles competing for us right there in Manchester. So we'll be right back. By the way, we have Charles all the way till 5 o'clock. When we come back, we're going to talk a lot more about, obviously, his 15-a-side setup and life in retirement, but also his first love. I want to imagine Queens, Kenya Harlequins. Lots been happening at Queens, by the way, and we want to understand, as a fan and as a lover of Queens, what exactly is going on there. We've had stories recently of players not receiving new contracts and money issues, so we'd like to hear from Charles about what's happening at Queens, and he can give us obviously some good vibe about that part of the world, because that is an integral part of Kenyan rugby. We cannot write them off. So we are here on the Sport Garage. You are live with Dennis Masinde Kitui Dimas here on Radio Nation, the home of hard truths and bold insights. We'll be right back with the legend Charles Cardovillis here on the Sport Garage. It's an absolute pleasure to have him. We'll hear more, and we'll be right back after this. Keep it locked.